Some things begin quietly. At first, you do not notice them. They blend into daily life and seem ordinary. But over time, you realize that this silence is actually a warning of something approaching. My name is Lucas. I was 21 years old when these events happened. I lived in a small, quiet town in the central United States. Until that age, I had never left the town. I remember nothing about my family, because I never knew them. They died when I was still a baby. The people who raised me were Ruth and Harold. Harold was an old friend of my father. Before he died, my father entrusted me to him. They had no children. They never treated me like a burden. They told me the truth from the beginning, but they did everything they could to make sure I did not feel the absence of my parents. Life in the town moves slowly. People wake up early in the morning and return home before it gets dark. I had been working on the farm for years. Harold wanted me to study, but I chose this path so I would not be a burden on them. My life was simple, quiet, and orderly. Until that day, everything started with an ordinary morning. That morning, I took the herd out to the pasture. My dog Rook was with me. Normally, he is calm and gentle, but that day he suddenly stopped. He froze where he stood. Then his fur stood on end and he began barking uncontrollably. I stood up. I looked around. There was nothing there, but Rook's gaze was fixed, as if it were locked onto an invisible point. I tried to calm him, but his trembling did not stop. That day, an uneasiness I could not explain settled inside me. When I returned home that evening, Ruth had prepared the table. A while later, Harold arrived. They asked how my day had gone. I told them about Rook's behavior. Ruth looked surprised. "This dog does not act like that for no reason," she said. Harold said nothing. His face looked thoughtful. After a moment, he said, "Go to bed early tonight. Maybe you are very tired and feeling anxious, and the dog is picking up on that." That night, the house felt different. The silence seemed louder somehow. The walls felt darker, as if they were closing in. The next day, everything seemed to return to normal, until I noticed that one of the animals was missing as I was getting ready to head home. It did not take long to find it, but when I did, my blood ran cold. A black rope was tightly tied around its leg. As I bent down to untie it, Rook suddenly started barking. When I lifted my head, I saw a tall, pitch-black silhouette standing a short distance away from the herd. It was not human, but it was not an animal either. Rook charged toward it. That thing looked at me for a moment. Then it vanished like mist, as if it had never been there. That evening, I almost ran back home. I told Harold everything. His face went pale. "Tell me exactly," he said. "Did it come closer? Did it touch you?" I could not answer, because I did not fully understand what I had seen myself. I was not sure. Ruth stepped in and calmed the situation. But after that night, the atmosphere inside the house changed. A few days later, I started feeling unwell. I felt nauseous and dizzy. One evening, I barely made it to the bathroom. I could not breathe. It felt like there was something inside me that did not belong to me. In that moment, I understood that this was not an ordinary illness. I did not tell anyone. My sleep began to break at night. One night, I woke up suddenly to a sound. I felt that I was not alone in my bed. I turned on the light. The room was empty, but the moment I turned the light off, in the moonlight, there was something clinging to the ceiling. It was looking at me, and it was smiling. I wanted to scream, but my body did not feel like it belonged to me. I could not control it. Then, just like before, the darkness dispersed like a cloud of mist, and suddenly my body went limp. I did not sleep at all that night. When morning came, everything was gone, but the feeling was not. A long time passed after this incident. Everything seemed as if it were returning to normal. After a while, I met Marlo. She was someone everyone in town knew, but no one truly knew. She was quiet. She did not ask many questions. When she listened to people, there was a strange calmness on her face. At first, we only talked. In the evenings, we took short walks, sometimes sitting on a bench and standing side by side for hours without saying anything. Time seemed to slow down when I was with her. The noise in my head faded, and the heaviness that settled inside me at night began to lift after some time. I realized that on the nights following the days I spent with her, I slept better. My sleep was not interrupted, and I no longer saw that silhouette at all. The nights I spent staring at the ceiling until morning were behind me. This gave me hope. Maybe what I experienced was loneliness. Maybe when a person holds on to someone, they can suppress their darkness, but still, not everything had disappeared completely. After a while, when I sat beside Marlo, I would feel a brief chill at the back of my neck. Or when she looked at me, it felt as if there was something else behind her eyes. But I did not say this to anyone, not even to myself, because I did not want the fear to return. And for the first time, I chose not to be afraid. Rook had changed as well. He no longer barked or attacked like before. Instead, he constantly lay in front of the door, lifting his head at night to stare into empty space. Sometimes he growled softly. Sometimes he pulled his ears back and retreated even though there was no sound at all. One evening, Harold called me into the kitchen. Ruth was sitting at the table. Her hands were clasped, her head lowered. Both of them carried the silence of people who did not want to speak. "You need to know now," Harold said. "We did not tell you before because you were not ready. My mother and father had made a great mistake before I was born. Their financial struggles and desperation had led them to the wrong people. They had taken part in a secret ritual in the town, one based on ancient beliefs. Their goal was not wealth or power. They only wanted their lives to fall into order. The ritual was about binding something, but what was bound had clung to blood. That was when Ruth spoke. At first, it did not target you, she said. But when you were born, it chose you. That entity had not left my mother and father alone. It disrupted their sleep at night and slowly drained them. My mother collapsed after giving birth, and my father began to lose his mind. Before they died, the only thing they did was get me out of that house. Entrusting me to Ruth and Harold was not a coincidence. They knew everything. "We did not want you to be alone," Harold said. because when you are alone, it can come closer. That night, I sat in my room for a long time. The silhouette I had seen, the weight I had felt, the thing that locked my body at night all came together as one. When I met Marlo, I told her everything. She listened. She did not run away. She did not deny it. "I know," she said quietly. I was surprised and asked how she knew. She told me that her family were people who dealt with and understood these things. Her mother and father had been involved in such practices as well. Later, by becoming more deeply involved, they had found themselves in even darker matters. But my parents had not been able to endure it and had wanted to leave those things behind. But nothing could be hidden forever. When I returned home, the atmosphere was even more oppressive. I did not want to talk to anyone that night. Rook did not leave the front of the door. Suddenly, Ruth's scream sent me rushing out of my room. Harold suddenly began struggling to breathe. When Ruth ran to help him, they both froze at the same time, as if something invisible was standing in the middle of the room. In that moment, I understood. The entity was here, and it wanted its final price. With her last, labored breath, Ruth gestured for me to go inside with her hand. Ruth and Harold had accepted this long ago, to keep me alive. That night, they both died, quietly, without resisting. When morning came, I was alone in the house. The police arrived. Questions were asked. No one could make sense of it. The town forgot it as well, because towns choose to forget such things. But I left. I chose not to see Marlo again. Being with her felt like it would allow everything to continue. Years passed. I built another life in another city. At night, no one wakes me anymore. There are no eyes staring at the ceiling, no weight that steals my breath. But I know this was not a victory. It was a postponement. Some things do not disappear, especially things bound by blood. And if one day I have a child, the silence I witnessed may speak again in their nights. I wait for that possibility with constant unease. Thank you for listening to this story until the very end. If this video affected you, don't forget to support the channel by liking it. For more dark and realistic stories like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the next story.